Down to Business, brought to you by AIB, Newstalk 106 to 108.
Yes, it's Saturday morning. I'm Bobby Kerr. You're listening to Down to Business. This is the show that gets behind how things really work in Irish business. Joining me first, however, to take me through the main business stories of the day is Breda Brown of Unique Media, a regular contributor here with us on Down to Business. Breda, what business stories caught your eye in the paper this morning?
Well, I suppose the main one for anybody is if you are a Tullow Oil shareholder, because apparently a payout could be on the way. Statoil, which is a Norwegian company that you're probably familiar with it, is apparently interested in buying the company. Now, shares apparently rallied yesterday in Tullow Oil on the basis of this on the basis of the speculation, exactly. What's interesting is they closed up 7.4% in London yesterday to 9.09 sterling. So that gives the company a market capitalisation of 9.9 billion euro, which is quite substantial, obviously. What's interesting here, though, Bobby, is that on Wednesday, shares in Tullow had actually been trading at a 5-year low.
Yeah.
So from Wednesday, on Thursday, then the rumours started surfacing. It went up, it closed 3.1% on Thursday, and then after that closed then on Friday 7.4% of an increase.
This is a serious Irish business. It generated revenue of 951 million euro in the first half of 2013. It produces the equivalent of 88,000 barrels a day for the first half of 2013. So they're talking about 200 million barrels a day for this year. It's an amazing business. Aidan Heavey, he seems to be an amazing man.
He did, and he actually left Aer Lingus in 1985 to set up the business, and what he wanted to do was actually look at areas where other companies didn't want to get into, so he ended up in Africa. So they've a huge amount of fields in Uganda and in Ghana. They're actually in 15 African nations at the moment, and they've also gone into the Arctic and into Norway, so hence where the connection with Statoil might be coming in then from that perspective. So yes, as I said, if you're a shareholder, watch this space.
And Statoil haven't commented on this speculation, but it's interesting about Statoil that they're 67% owned by the Norwegian government.
They are indeed.
And again, the Norwegian oil sector, hugely valuable, hugely successful. You mentioned Aer Lingus there, where Heavey came from. I was just struck by an article accompanying it in today's paper about other people that left Aer Lingus to go on to greater things. And I quote a union official said a couple of years ago, when it comes to Aer Lingus, the cream rarely rose to the top and our brightest stars had to go elsewhere. We're talking about people here like Tony Ryan, co-founder of Ryanair and the founder of GPA. He started in Aer Lingus. Willie Walsh, he joined Aer Lingus almost by accident. He signed up for a pilot cadetship in 1979 when he was 17. A decade later he was captain, and then he became CEO and left the airline to go to BA. Alan Joyce of Qantas also worked in Aer Lingus. Who else have we got? There's a couple more.
We have Conor McCarthy, who's the MD of Dublin Aerospace, and he worked alongside Alan Joyce actually at one point, and apparently was chief executive of the airline's commuter division. So he moved on then to Dublin Aerospace. And a few other names you'd probably know would be Seamus Carney, who's now the boss at the food group Valio.
That's right, yeah.
And the Kerry Group CEO as well, Hugh Friel, the former Kerry Group CEO, Hugh Friel is another one. So yeah, as I say, interesting that it's obviously a very good training ground and learning ground for others who ended up moving on.
Okay, well, good luck to Aidan Heavey, and good luck to all those people who bounced out of Aer Lingus onto better things. What about this full recovery will take at least a decade, say the IMF conference on during the week? This Craig Beaumont.
Now, Craig Beaumont is the IMF's Ireland mission chief, and he was at a conference in Dublin yesterday. So I suppose the good news he's telling us is that we are on our way to a full recovery, but the bad news is it's going to take a decade. So we're going to have to wait until 2024 before we see the full results. So he said he didn't want to be a wet blanket, but I think, Craig, in fairness now, you probably were. He said reform is still needed, and interestingly, one of the areas, Bobby, that he highlighted where reform and savings are still needed is the health sector. I really don't think we're ever going to get away from this, and I don't know where the cuts are going to come from, because it does seem to be running on empty at the moment. Now, that said, I think there probably needs to be a huge amount of reform in how it is operated, but not necessarily expenditure. It just needs to be run properly. quickly.
Interestingly, Breda, Patrick Holohan was at the same conference, and he said that the specific measures used by the Troika upon the state were sensible or inevitable, with few really bad ideas.
And I think what he said makes absolute sense. If you take a step back from the whole situation and look at it objectively, I think everything that the Troika did was correct. Now we're in a situation where we have a springboard to growth at this point, but as Craig Bowman said, it will take 10 years, a decade. You'd like to think it wouldn't take that long, but unfortunately it will. But at least the grassroots are showing at the moment, which is important. And
then another spun out of that, then we have too soon for wage hikes, say IMF chief, and that was again at this same conference, that we really need to be careful that we don't now end up into a serious wage escalation where our competitiveness gets damaged, and we really, really need to keep wages under wraps. Unfortunately, it's starting already. Yeah. It really is. We can see it in various businesses that we work with. There is a talent crisis within certain age groups as a result of emigration. So if you are looking maybe for somebody in the 22-year-old to the 32-year-old bracket and the plethora of, I suppose, experience that they bring with them, they're not here. They're gone. They've emigrated. So there is a certain skill set that has actually emigrated. As a result, we are seeing that there is an awful lot more headhunting going on then for various levels. Well, it's supply and demand, isn't it? And that's increasing wages. So I think it started already, and we need to be extremely careful, because that could be detrimental to businesses that are really only just getting back on their feet. This, again, going back to this Craig Beaumont from Europe, he's suggesting that it's probably time to restart dialogue between social partners to ensure long-term unemployed get a chance to return to work. And that's really the critical thing, that we have to get the long-term unemployed back to work before we do anything else. We do. It's crucial. And also I heard Ivan Yates talking about this earlier in the week, about, you know, really that if social partnership is handled properly and there's a trade-off maybe with a tax reduction or whatever around a total buy-in to social partnership, that it actually can work. And he referred back to when it worked in the early days of social partnership. It ran away with itself subsequently, but that it would be a good idea, and now is a perfect time maybe for all parties to look at engaging on that. Absolutely, which moves us on, I suppose, to another story, which is quite interesting, in that we actually, despite everything going on around us, we spent more during the summer months that have just gone by. So, according to the CSO... Oh, it seems like such a long time ago. It does. The long, hot summer. Cold outside today, but spending between July and September increased by 215 million. Serious, which is quite substantial. So, I mean, look, it was the first good summer that we had in a really long time, so I think people probably felt austerity was going to go out the window, and they wanted to just spend a little bit more. And also the feel-good factor that also came, I think, from the good weather as well, probably encouraged them to spend a bit more. So, okay, well, I just had a quiet sneeze there when you were talking, Breda, and nobody heard it, thank God. But sneezing in winter and talking about summer, but just reflect back to the summer. Lots of people would have stayed in Ireland on staycations, which I think helped the spending. And they were spending more, I think, while they were away than on days out, you know, on ice cream and on sort of coffees and on. Well, I have to say, and I was in a very precarious situation, because very hot weather is bad for coffee sales, and I was worried at one stage that we might, you know, be significantly affected by the hot weather, but thankfully we had a good range of ice drinks. They never replaced the demand for hot drinks, but you saw retailers that, you know, they were selling ice cream. They were sort of ready for it, and were happy to adapt their business, as you say. And speed of adaptation is critical. If you can move quickly when with the weather, you can make money. Absolutely. I would also say summer clothes. Yeah. I imagine that there was a huge spend on that, because again, we haven't had reason to use summer clothes that much over the past few years. Also then petrol, just to go on days out, or public transport, and garden furniture, and a little bit of DIY. So it's interesting as well that the whole feel-good factor meant that there was 51 million less saved during the period. And again, that's down to the weather's good, I'm feeling good, to hell with it, I'll get out there and spend. We'll worry about it when the weather I think turns. People, like, the influence of weather on our economy is absolutely massively significant. I think that more so than people actually realise. And on our mindset, I think, as well, in terms of just being more positive as everybody was this year. It just puts you into a better frame of mind, and also you feel you can achieve more as a result. All right, is there some good news out there for some golfers? Apparently there could be a European court decision which tees up VAT windfall to golf clubs. This was in the Irish Times today, and I thought it was an interesting story. Basically what it means is the European Court of Justice have come to a decision that says that levying VAT where non-members pay green fees to play on member-owned sites was not in line with EU law. And apparently there's 300 clubs here, Irish golf clubs, that fall into this category, and there could be a VAT refund due in all these cases. I think the average green fee is suggested here at being around €40, and VAT rates on that would be either 9 or 13.5%. So,
and if this comes to fruition as well, it will also make it cheaper though as well for non-members to play a round of golf at a member-owned club. So I think really anything that encourages people to get out and play golf or play any sort of sport, I think is always to be welcomed.
And I see the Revenue are also saying that they must ensure that there isn't unjust enrichment. I've heard this term before. This is whereby the golf club can't pocket the money that you're meant to give it back to your customers.
Right.
So if you have a VAT windfall because effectively the money was never yours, the Revenue insists that you actually give it back to your customers, and it's a very grey, murky area, but it does happen. Golf clubs are probably, one of the organisations that have really suffered over the last 5-6 years. There's probably too many of them. They were built at huge costs, and I think a lot of them struggled with keeping members. It's probably one of the earlier things that go if you're cutting back your costs. I can't afford to be a member of a golf club, and so any bit of good news for them is good news.
And I can only imagine that membership costs have probably come down, and sort of one-off fees have come down as a result of the recession over the past couple of years. So again, a huge opportunity for anybody who wants to get into the sport to give it a try now.
How would you like your steaks carbon footprint? Front page of the Indo?
I generally like them quite medium rare. However, Simon Coveney, the Agriculture Minister, has decided that from now on we're actually probably going to be able to find out the emissions and environmental impact of the farm, the herd and the cow that actually produced the meat that's on your plate. So up until now it's all been about the number of calories that's actually in your dish, but plans are now in place to actually show what the environmental impact of this piece of meat
I don't know, I'm suspicious of this. To me it's waffly,
the aim apparently is to show the diner how your dinner sort of has affected the environment.
I don't know. I'm sorry for being sceptical, but I just am. Be careful for what you wish for, though, because it may contain too much information, with cows being the largest producers of greenhouse gases.
Well, that's it. Well, let's not dwell too much on that. But I mean, Simon Coveney then goes on to say that Irish farms are among the lowest producers of carbon emissions in Europe, which sort of negates the whole reason for this then, And to be honest, are consumers overly worried about the environmental impact of their meat or their food? I'm not sure we're there yet. I think value is still the huge main element when people come to shopping and eating out, followed by quality. And I think the environment then might be the third element.
We'll be hearing from Aidan Cotter later in the programme about Bord Bia and how he sees food as being the absolute future of our nation. But I want to go back to Simon Coveney, because I saw him talking at the Leia Healthcare Pendulum Summit down in the conference centre earlier in the week. My, what a speech. He introduced himself as not being a minister. I'm here as a regular Joe. And he spoke without a note, with absolute passion. You could have heard a pin drop in the room. He talked about his work-life balance, his speech impediment that he had as a child that he overcame. And he left about 400 or 500 people absolutely enthralled, Breda.
And sometimes it's fantastic to get a personal insight into somebody like that.
It was absolutely amazing. And well done to Frankie Sheehan from the front line for setting that up, because it was a great inspirational day. But Coveney stole the show.
I think sometimes with politicians you just generally see what you see on television or what you hear on radio, and it's very much about work. So to get an insight into how work impacts on his home life as well. He mentioned the fact that when his wife was actually in labour, he was on the labour ward having quite a serious conversation with one of his colleagues in Europe, and this was during the European presidency, and he literally had to say, I'm really sorry to be rude, but my third child is about to be born. I need to leave you here.
All right, just quickly, just to wrap up then, clocking in for a cup of coffee. This should be of interest to me. What do you make of it? Maybe explain it to us first, Breda.
Well, apparently it started in Russia. It's now moved to London. You can go for what they call all-you-can-eat biscuits, endless cup of teas and coffee, and unlimited Wi-Fi in this particular venue in London. So what they do is they charge you do a pay per minute. So they charge you 3 pence per every minute that you spend.
You pick
inside.
up a clock on your way in.
Pick up the clock.
And then you can eat and drink as much as you want, but you also have to do your own wash up.
You also have to make your own tea and coffee, which I wasn't overly impressed by. So in fairness, I mean, that's £1.80 in London for an hour.
3p for an espresso, that sounds good.
Of sitting around, but you're getting the free Wi-Fi as well. So it's a business idea, Bobby, that maybe you can look at for Dublin.
All right, Breda Brown from Unique Media, thank you for a splendid review of the papers, and pleasure to talk to you as always.